Thanks for having me on the show. So, as you were saying, there are five candidates that are disputing the presidency in Honduras. Keep in mind, this is a single round vote, which, already going into it makes this a very tense scenario, very tense election that's at stake. Also, the municipalities and legislature are all up for grabs. You have the officialist candidate, who's Rixi Moncada, as you were saying. She's a former defense minister, very much aligned with current President Xiomara Castro. And then the other two, Tito Asfura, who, as you were saying, got a boost from President Trump 48 hours before the election. And then Salvador Nasrallah, who is a TV personality, has already run for the presidency many times before. It's very, very tight between the three of them, depending on what poll you're looking at, depending who you're talking to. And that's very important because that is what's fueling some of the mistrust in this process from many people on the ground and even internationally.
Right, okay. And speaking of internationally, then Donald Trump looms large over this election, doesn't he, Maria?
Well, I would say, Hondurans are going to the ballots today. They're voting with two things top of mind. One is jobs, and the other is corruption. Jobs, of course, Honduras is one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere. It's also pretty violent, highest homicide rates in Central America, and that's been really, really hard for any government to bring those numbers down. And so what Donald Trump can say or not say really won't affect what happens at the ballot box. Some might see it as a guarantee of security from Washington or a threat, but I think really it comes down to what's, people's wallets and how they see their day-to-day lives. And Donald Trump's not voting in this election.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. So you feel, I mean, basically saying vote for this guy or we'll cut aid feels like a sort of pretty firm line that might land and potentially sway some people's opinions of what they do in the ballot box. You say that that's probably less likely to happen. They're not going to be swayed by that.
Well, the first thing is any aid, and we're talking here roughly $150 to $200 million per year that Honduras is getting from the United States. Keep in mind that does not go to the government. So that's a very common misconception. It's not a government to government kind of assistance. This is channeled through civil society organizations. And yes, Donald Trump and the administration can decide to cut that flow. But this assistance to Honduras is mostly civilian assistance. It goes to community service programs. It goes to economic development programs, agriculture, things that keep people in rural communities employed and have options other than migrating. Also, importantly, it goes to training prosecutors, judges, the police, fighting, the roots of corruption and fighting against drugs, which allegedly is a top priority of this administration in the United States.
Right. Yeah. Okay. There's also, Maria, some concern about how smoothly this will go, right? And the sort of delivery of results, and also the armed forces as well. In recent years, they've been accused of a sort of creeping politicization, whether they will remain independent or whether they may sort of come in behind a politician. It feels like there's quite a lot of variables and a lot of uncertainty around this vote.
Yeah, and I would say, Daryl, of course, we're all focused on who's going to win. What will also be equally as important is, will the two losers also concede? How quickly will they concede? And the role of the military, as you're saying here, is important. Per the Constitution, they're supposed to oversee the vote. They're supposed to guarantee peace and order. They're not supposed to have any type of parallel count. They're not supposed to have any type of involvement in transporting the ballots or anything like that. And in recent weeks, the sort of the top figure official of the military has said that the military is they are at the disposal of the current president of Honduras, and that they, that they will make sure that the votes are counted fairly and justly and transparently, which is raising concerns because that's outside of the scope that the Constitution gives the armed forces. I will say that in comparison to previous elections, I think that these military forces, the armed forces, are being more political and more politicized than before. And so that's also feeding into all these different narratives of mistrust, concern that actually the results that we'll start to hear about at around 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. local time in Honduras are actually votes and results to trust.
Okay, interesting. Just finally, there are, as we mentioned, there are 128 members of Congress, 300 local representatives. How does Congress and local representatives interact with the president and influence the balance of power?
So it's, of course, different branches. What will depend, or what will be important, is whether we see out of those seats in Congress any major alliances that form. I would say that Latin America, in particular Central American countries, with some exceptions like El Salvador, Nicaragua, you do tend to see a lot of fragmentation. You do tend to see a lot of there's a plurality of political parties, and that makes coalition building difficult. It makes it difficult for passing bills. It makes it difficult for any type of consensus, which is, I would say, probably something that adds to the long-standing challenges that Central American countries have.
Yeah. Okay. When do we get a result, Maria? It'll be a few days, will it, presumably, or quickly, or not?
Given all the tensions and the narratives that we shouldn't rely or shouldn't trust the rapid count system, I think that it will be a few days. I think everyone's focused on who's going to win, but we have to start thinking about what happens when the clock strikes midnight in Honduras, and we still don't have clarity of who's actually in the lead. What's going to happen? Are people going to go to the streets? Are they going to sit and wait? All these things that are going to start to happen in Honduras, and that could be a deja vu of 2017 when there were people on the streets. The military was also pretty involved. I think that's what people will be watching. And finally, something that's super important will be, if Donald Trump's candidate does not win, how quickly will Washington speak out, and will they endorse, the result? Will they think that that's a valid and legit result?